acting WIPP program manager at NMED's or the New Mexico Environment Department's Hazardous Waste Bureau WIPP permitting group. This meeting is being recorded. The meeting is being held in person here in Santa Fe, in person in Carlsbad, and online on the WebEx platform. The meeting is scheduled to run from 5 to 7 p.m. tonight. A couple of housekeeping issues in Santa Fe. If you are here, there are exits at the back of this auditorium on both sides. If you need restrooms, there is a security booth right behind this auditorium. If you go down the hall to the right, there's the men's, to the left is the women's, and there are water fountains there also. There will be a brief presentation followed by public comment. The plan is to restrict the time for public comment to 5 minutes per individuals, please. If you'd like to sign up to give public comment, if you're in person in Santa Fe, you can do so with Madai Corral of our Office of Public Facilitation at the table right over here. And the purpose of that is so that you don't have to wait in line. You can remain seated when it's time for public comment, and we'll call you up when it's your turn. In Santa Fe, the mic is right here on my left if you would like to give comment. And the same situation exists in person in Carlsbad. If you want to give public comment online, please put your name in the chat, and Pam Jones, also of our Office of Public Facilitation, is monitoring that. NED is in person here in Santa Fe to answer your questions. Along with myself, we have our Deputy Cabinet Secretary of Administration, Sydney Linneman, and we also have our Resource Protection Division Director, Rick Sheen. I'm going to ask Ashley Waldrum of the permittees in Carlsbad to introduce folks down there.
Hi, I'm Ashley Waldrum with Los Alamos Technical Associates. I have Michael Gurley, the Director of Environmental Regulatory Compliance Division with the Carlsbad Field Office, and I have Rick Chavez, the Environmental Program Manager with Los Alamos Technical Associates on behalf of SIMCO.
Deputy Secretary Linneman is now going to give an opening statement.
Hi, is this close now? Yeah, all right, cool. Hi, I'm Sydney Linneman. I'm the Deputy Cabinet Secretary of the New Mexico Environment Department. I will be super brief because there are a lot of subject matter experts in the room and I am not one of them. Oh, closer? Okay, that close enough? I just want to begin by acknowledging what a momentous occasion this is. We have come out of these negotiations with just a really amazing set of new protections for the state of New Mexico. And we couldn't have done it without the super dedicated team of staff here at the New Mexico Environment Department. They work tirelessly to do this work. I'm guessing that you know that they are not paid particularly well. They work really long hours. It's not easy. They definitely don't do this work because it makes them popular. I don't know if you know this, but environmental regulators aren't always the most popular people, as I found out in the last 6 months. But they're kind. They bring their all every single day to this work, and I am just so proud to be here with you today. Thank you. So I also want to just take a moment to acknowledge that it is Friday night, and you are all here too. Thank you. We can't do this work without you. We need your advocacy. We need your expertise. We need your lived experiences to inform our work. So know that we view this as a partnership with you, and we are here to help kind of translate what you see as the needs of the community. So view us as an open door. Know that I am here to be kind of an interface. If you want to chat with me, I'll be here after. I have many business cards. You can have any of them. You can have as many as you want. But I'm really passionate about, and I share this with my colleagues, having this be continuing to build this really productive working relationship with all of you that live in this community, because we live in an amazing state. We live in the best state, and we can't protect it without all of you. So thanks. With that, I will turn it back to my colleague. Wait, let me make sure that I said all the things I was supposed to. Yeah. As the host state for this facility, it's important that you know that this is the first stop for all discussions regarding this facility and waste shipped to the facility. And I know Megan's going to talk a little bit more about all of the new provisions in this new draft permit renewal, but I, again, just want to thank you all, and thank you all for all your hard work. Okay, thank you.
Megan, before you start, may I give instructions for anyone who wants to listen on the Spanish channel?
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. So I'm briefly going to give some instructions in Spanish for people who are there in person as well as online on how to access the Spanish interpretation. Buenas tardes. Si hay alguien ahí en persona que quisiera escuchar en español, si puede hacernos el favor de levantar la mano y así le podemos indicar dónde puede conseguir los auriculares. Esto es para las personas que están allí en persona. Para los que están participando por Internet, por la plataforma de WebEx, si miren a pie de su pantalla, hay un mundo y lo puede seleccionar y ahí puede seleccionar su idioma español. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Deputy Secretary Linneman, for that nice opening statement. Again, I am Megan McLean, and I also want to thank you all for joining us here on a Friday night. The reason we had it on this day is if we had a public hearing, this would have been the last day of it, hopefully, that we had a certain amount of time blocked off that we had decided on, and this was going to be the last day. So that's how it randomly came to this Friday night. But thank you for being here. The presentation will give a brief overview of improvements made to the final WIPP renewal permit. Next slide, please. Since there will no longer be a public hearing on this matter, NMED wanted to provide this public meeting. Although the meeting is not required by the regulations, it was important to NMED to provide a forum for the public to come together and discuss renewal. Next slide, please. The reason we aren't having a hearing is in late June, NMED, in conjunction with the permittees, conducted successful negotiations on the WIPP renewal draft permit, which resulted in a settlement agreement, negating the need for a public hearing in this matter. The parties resolved the contentious issues by modifying various conditions for inclusion in the renewal permit over 4 days of negotiations. The process worked given a strong mediator, the participation of our NMED Cabinet Secretary, James Kenney, pictured here, and the willingness of all parties to come together and negotiate. NMED draft permit changes were upheld and strengthened during negotiations. For the remainder of this presentation, I will briefly go over the improvements made to the draft permit that were introduced in the draft permit and also came about as a result of negotiations and the settlement agreement. It's important to note that many of the draft permit changes were introduced as a result of your public comments. It's also important that improvements occurred during negotiations, and that was a result of the time dedicated to negotiations by key stakeholders. Next slide, please. Although WIPP community forums have previously been held, NMED felt it was important to enshrine these in the permit because NMED feels strongly about public participation and improving it. to let you know the next WIPP Community Forum is being held on October 3rd. That is going to be held in Carlsbad and also online. Non-compliances with Department of Transportation requirements must now be reported to NMED. A new annual report which summarizes oil and gas and saltwater disposal well information around the WIPP site boundary must now be submitted to NMED. GSTRs, or generator site technical reviews, which are in addition to permit required audits of the generator sites who ship waste to the WIPP facility from around the country, are now a requirement of the permit. Next slide, please. These two conditions strengthen NMED's ability to provide oversight over shipments and also to ensure lessons are learned should an incident occur with a shipping container when it arrives at the WIPP facility. Next slide, please. These changes relate to final facility closure, capacity limits for waste, and the siting of another repository. These changes will help NMED, as the regulator, to better understand how much waste is left in the DOE complex and how much capacity is needed for that waste. These changes also modify how new waste panels will be requested in the permit and require a final facility footprint description come in with their submittal. New conditions provide recognition that there is a volumetric capacity limit authorized by Congress. And once this limit is reached, a new facility should be online in a state other than New Mexico to accept future waste. Next slide, please. These two conditions relate to making both legacy waste a priority, as well as prioritizing the disposal of waste from Los Alamos. As the host state, priority should be given and space should be reserved in the WIPP underground for waste from New Mexico generator storage sites. During negotiations, a new condition was introduced to both define the term legacy waste and to identify the remaining inventory of this legacy waste around the DOE complex. This plan will be developed in collaboration with stakeholders and generator storage sites, the ultimate goal of which will be to make legacy waste a priority in panel 12. Next slide, please. So where are we now in the renewal process? The final permit will be issued by NMED in early October, along with NMED's response to comments. Per the regulations, the effective date for the permit will be 30 days later in early November. Last slide, please. Thank you for your time. We will now move into the comment portion of the evening. Let me just get situated over here and we will begin. Thank you. We are going to go around sort of round robin style and take some comments in Santa Fe, then take comments in Carlsbad, and then take comments online. And then we'll come back around to the different locations as needed. If you would like to ask questions of NMED here, please feel free also to do that. And you can also ask questions of the permittees in Carlsbad. We'll start with Santa Fe. The first person on our list is Doug Micklejohn of Conservation Voters, New Mexico. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Megan. Is this on? Um, my name is Douglas Micklejohn. I'm with Conservation Voters New Mexico. Conservation Voters participated in the negotiations that led to the permit renewal. Conservation Voters applauds the Environment Department and in particular Megan and Secretary Jim Kenney for their effort during those negotiations, and in particular for including three very important conditions in the permit. The first condition is the requirement that the United States, I beg your pardon, the permittees report to the Environment Department every year on the progress the United States has made in citing another permanent repository in a state other than New Mexico. The second condition is the provision in the renewal permit that if Congress changes the volumetric limit on waste disposal in WIPP pursuant to the Land Withdrawal Act, that the permit will be revoked. And the third condition is the requirement that waste from Los Alamos National Laboratory be given priority for disposal at WIPP. In addition, because of the negotiations, the permit includes a fourth condition that's very important, and that condition will improve the public notice that is given about activities at WIPP to members of the public in the state of New Mexico. Finally, Conservation Voters urges the Environment Department to be extremely vigilant over the term of this permit renewal, which is 10 years. There are a lot of good conditions in the permit, but it's up to the Environment Department to make sure that those conditions are followed through the entire 10-year life of the permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Next in Santa Fe, we have Robin Seidel from Stop Forever WIPP Coalition.
Thank you. I'm Robin Seidel, and this is my co-speaker, Scott Kovic, with the Stop Forever WIPP Coalition. We're here to present 444 signatures on our open letter. The Stop Forever WIPP Coalition includes Nuke Watch, Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety, Citizens for Alternative to Radioactive Dumping, Southwest Research and Information Center, Nuke Watch, and Veterans for Peace, and Demand Nuclear Abolition. And we'd just like to read you our open letter to thank the New Mexico Environment Department and to inform the governor. And I just want to say we do really appreciate Megan and the secretary, and they are popular with us because they worked so hard during the negotiations. So we love you guys for your efforts. Thanks. Scott is going to read for us.
All right, thank you and good evening. This is an open letter from the people of New Mexico to Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and Secretary of Environment James Kenney. We, the undersigned, thank you for your efforts to hold the Department of Energy accountable to the people of New Mexico, ensuring promises made when we agreed to host the waste isolation pilot plant are preserved. We support requirements for strict standards on the types of nuclear waste allowed, including only legacy, transuranic, and transuranic mixed waste. Prioritizing Los Alamos National Laboratories legacy waste disposal into WIPP is needed to protect New Mexicans from contamination. The New Mexico Environment Department must require that the DOE report on the progress of siting repositories in other states. We support the governor's use of all tools available to prevent WIPP expansion. NMED must strictly enforce the provisions of the renewal permit. Opportunities for public involvement must be frequently provided. Your support is needed to protect the health of our people, safety of our homeland, and our future economic viability. We look forward to participating with the governor and with NMED in ensuring that New Mexico does not become the nation's nuclear dumping ground. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And I just would also like to say that Conservation Voters New Mexico is also part of the coalition. And I'm going to bring these over to you, Megan. We have scanned these in and we will also send you an email, but we thought you should have hard copies too.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have Don Hancock here in Santa Fe. Don is from Southwest Research and Information Center.
Thank you, Megan, and thank everybody for being here. Actually, rather than comments, I have a number of questions that I'd like to ask the permittees. So I'm hoping they can both hear me and be able to respond. First is that the existing permit provides no requirement for DOE to report on progress for developing another true waste repository. That's already been mentioned. Section 2.14.3 in the renewal permit requires an annual additional repository siting report. So my question is, what is the schedule for that first annual report to be submitted?
Want to answer that? So Don, the schedule would be not this October, October 2024 with our annual reports.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Under the existing permit, there is no requirement to prioritize landfill legacy waste, and we've already heard about that, or legacy waste from any site, even though WIPP was authorized for disposal of true legacy waste. Just a point of fact for people who aren't able to pay attention, in the 12 weeks since the settlement agreement was signed on June 23rd, 8 of the 134 shipments to WIPP have come from Los Alamos. That's less than one shipment a week, less than 6% of all the shipments that have come to WIPP. So that's what's happening under the existing permit. Section 4.2.1.4 in the renewal permit requires prioritization of New Mexico's waste and requires a certification of that to be done. So my question for the permittees is, what is the schedule for the first annual certification required by that section of the permit?
Don, that would be, as the permit indicates, that would be this likely in January. Typically, the outward is issued late in every year around December or January. So we're looking at submitting that around January of 2024. Of course, that's based on the outward issuance.
Thank you. The next section of the renewal permit, again, this is not in the existing permit, but in the permit when it becomes effective, 4.2.1.5 requires a legacy true waste plan, and Megan mentioned that in her changes. So my question there is, what is the schedule to begin the stakeholder engagement in the development of that plan? Is the schedule going to be the same for each of the DOE sites? And how many DOE sites will be included in that process?
Don, we're currently working on that schedule and the implementation plan. But of course, we'll meet what the permit requires and begin our stakeholder involvement within 90 days of the effective date of the permit.
And how many sites are going to be involved, Rick?
Well, as the permit indicated, we plan to get the active generator storage sites involved.
Hopefully that's all of them. And I guess what I'm asking and what I'm hoping is the stakeholder engagement at all the sites will be active and early and throughout the process. Is that Is that what you're planning or not?
Yes, sir, that's what we're planning.
So in the existing permit and then the renewal permit, attachment A2 states, quote, shaft number 5 provides the majority of the air intake for the underground facility. Of course, that shaft is not currently yet in operation. It's still being mined. My question is, are the permittees committed to only using shaft 5 for that purpose during the permit term?
Well, it will be used as the primary intake as described in the permit, Don?
Well, are you committing to?
It will be the primary intake air.
I think he's asking if there's other things that it may be used
Oh.
for during the permit timeframe. And I would say that the hoisting mechanisms and the other uses of the shaft have not yet quite been determined. I would suspect that it would be used for additional personnel, entrance and egress. But if it's used for anything that would be waste related, we would have to work that through NMED and through the stakeholders to apply for the appropriate permit for that use.
Okay. And I think my time's about up, but one more thing that we've sort of talked about. Rick mentioned the ATWR, and for people who aren't familiar, that's the annual transuranic waste inventory report that's done each year. So that's been done historically. It's now included as part of the permit. And the renewal also requires a inventory of true waste. And again, Megan mentioned this, an inventory of true waste from the DOE complex to support a renewal application. My question is, are those going to be one and the same, or is there going to be a different, is the plan to have a different inventory for the purposes of a renewal application or using the ATWR?
Michael, currently it's going to be one ATWR. Don, am I correct, Michael?
To my understanding, the ATWR is the culmination of an annual investigation with the generator sites that looks at what they propose and have identified as transuranic waste requiring disposal at the WIPP. So it is, after the questions go back and forth between our investigation team and the generator sites, what I would account as our best inventory. The ATWR usually has an inclusion of the basis and how they determine those numbers and the effective changes that have occurred over that they identified during that investigation that year. So I would, from that perspective, I would say yes. The current plan is to use that as our inventory.
Thank you. Part of the reason for these questions is to provide some further information so we and the public understand some of how the permittees are planning to implement things in the renewal permit, but they're also, to reinforce a point that Mr. Micklejohn made earlier, we and the public are very concerned about the Environment Department closely monitoring what's going on, encouraging, requiring as necessary strict compliance with these provisions, because good provisions in a permit that are not enforced are not really good provisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I think you know one of the tenets of the Environment Department is enforcement, so you can be sure that we will be doing that. Thank you. I think we'll take some questions from Carlsbad now, if there are any.
Don't have any here.
What was that, Ashley?
We do not have any commenters here.
Okay, thank you. Pam, do we have any online?
Yes, we do. Deborah Reed put her name in the chat and she would like to make a comment. Miss Reed, you can, there you go, unmute and turn your camera on and go for it.
All right. Yes, my name is Deborah Reed from Santa Fe, and I am speaking as an individual. And I want to thank NMED this evening for their work in achieving this renewal permit. This permit along with your current actions in rejecting DOE's sketchy plans to cap and cover unlined waste pits at Lannell's MDAC, show that you truly understand the department's primary mission. That is to protect human health and the environment for all New Mexicans. I hope this approach, which has been in the Hazardous Waste Bureau particularly, I hope this approach will spread throughout all the bureaus at NMED. It's clear that many New Mexicans already do not want a further expanded WIPP, do not want a more dangerous waste to be transported on our highways and end up at WIPP, and do want a clear operational closure date in the near term for WIPP. As more New Mexicans learn about and understand WIPP and the negative effects it has on our state, this number will only increase, and the need for NMED to use its authority to enforce a negotiated permit will be even more important. So we support you in vigorously enforcing the conditions and limitations that you have written into the current permit, and we encourage NMED to continue to pay close attention now and in the future to what all New Mexicans want. And even more important, we encourage the department to pay close attention to what we as a state need so that the health and environment of all New Mexicans can be protected from potentially devastating projects like WIPP. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
We now have a Mr. David Biswell. Mr. Biswell, would you like to make a comment?
I'll just read what I wrote, that it's a privilege to be here for this public forum and a great opportunity for New Mexico citizens to appreciate all the incredible work that NMED and the WIPP staff has done for this renewal. It sets an excellent point of cooperation between WIPP and the citizens of New Mexico. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Biswell. Mr. Solitz, I see your hand up. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm calling from Eugene, Oregon. I've been concerned with the Hanford site for quite a few number of years now. I really appreciate New Mexico taking on the legacy waste from around the country. It's going to be hard to cite new waste disposal sites, and if there's anything we can do to encourage you to further accept our waste, it'd be greatly appreciated. I don't know if there's any reciprocity possible. We can accept some kinds of waste at Hanford, will fit our waste acceptance criteria. In the years going forward, it looks like with the disposal of weapons grade plutonium, unused, unneeded, and the equipment to refurbish all of the weapons that are being refurbished, it looks like it'd be a real struggle for Hanford to safely dispose of its waste. So I hope an open mind can be kept, and if there's some reciprocity that could be had, we would certainly be willing to listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solitz. Megan, I don't have, oh, I'm sorry. I see Kathy Sanchez has now put her hand up. Ms. Sanchez, would you like to make a public comment?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to put my video on, but I released that button. Okay, so I'll just say, Umbiagindi. I am Kathy Wimpovi Sanchez from San Ildefonso Pueblo, and indigenous grandmother.
Excuse me, Ms. Sanchez, we're
Yes.
having a little bit of trouble hearing you. If you could get a little closer to the mic, if that's possible.
Okay, I am in a vehicle, so I'll try my best.
Okay, thank you.
So I am Kathy Wimpovi Sanchez from San Ildefonso Pueblo, an indigenous grandmother, mother, and I am, yes, very proud of New Mexico Environmental Department for doing the utmost that they could and can for the safety of the people. But I would say that that in no way should this permit also give Lano or others permission to expand the facility of WIPP, because what you insert into Mother Earth's womb body is just as toxic as the material that is being inserted. And so we would appreciate greatly that no higher or no more mixed. And we are very scared. It's very toxic to our environmental transportation of it. And as a woman, our children are the ones that are most vulnerable, especially the younger they are. The bodies are not as young adults, but that be given into consideration of the level of the toxicity that is there, and its cumulative and exponential harm it does. So when there's a level, when the alarms go off, that there is too much, that there be a stop, a moratorium created at some point to assess whether conditions are still as safe as they are assumed to be, but that there'll be times of moratorium so that our rumbling on the highways and the fear that we have about mishaps be also considered with the state of New Mexico on transportation, roads, the roughness, the temperatures, the hazardous climate collapse that's happening, and also the stability of Mother Earth's ability to handle such toxicity into her body. And as a woman and hearing what's happening, the accountability should be more reports that are understandable by common people. And I might have more comments later, but I'll stop right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, do you have more people online, or should we go to Santa Fe for a little bit and then go back online?
Why don't you take some more in Santa Fe? Mr. Solitz has his hand up again, but let's let others have their first round of
Sounds
comments
good.
or questions.
Thank you, Pam. Next in Santa Fe, we have Steve Zappi.
I may go a minute over 5, so if you'd indulge me, thank you. Okay. Good evening. My name is Steve Zappi. I'm a retired NMD staff manager. I'm grateful for the opportunity I had to participate in negotiations that resulted in this proposed final permit. I'm going to shift gears a bit from what has been going on. I'm going to talk today, share about my thoughts about how the WIPP permit was managed following my removal from the NMD group in May of 2011, and why, though I am optimistic about the direction the current group now appears to be taking. During the Martinez administration from 2011 to 2018, I would characterize the guiding principle for the NMD WIPP group as that of being enablers for the permittees rather than being regulators, perhaps with the exception of the 2014 rupture incident and how that was handled. When I was the WIPP project staff manager, I followed 3 guiding principles that directed my approach to work. The first 2 never changed, but the third could be modified depending upon the particular circumstance at the time. These were, first, focus on the process, not on the personality. And that meant to know the regulations, know how the permit requirements work, know what needs to be done for compliance, and how to achieve it, regardless of who is across the table from you, whether it's a cabinet secretary, a DOE manager, an elected official, a low or high-level staff person from the facility, or a member of the public. It shouldn't matter. Be respectful, but not intimidated, whether you like them or not, whether they can get you fired or, in my case, reassigned. Just speak truth to power and be firm in your convictions based upon what is clearly right and articulate what is clearly wrong. Second, whatever you do, it's got to be based on the record, the administrative record. You can't act on a verbal request or a promise by someone to do something, and you can't act on something that is inconsistent with the administrative record, no matter how persuasive it may sound. For me, the outcome of the 2018 volume of record modification is the classic example of the result of ignoring this guiding principle. What was clearly inconsistent with the bulk of the record regarding volume calculations was instead embraced by NMED and defended at hearing and appeal, with the inevitable outcome being the forever WIPP conundrum we now face. And third guiding principle is your preferred guiding principle inserted here. This could be anything, and I forget all the permutations I went through over the years, although one of them was particularly crude, which I will not repeat. But consider adopting one or more of the following suggestions. First, I heard this from a coworker when I started working with the Bureau: trust but verify, a saying made famous by President Reagan in his dealings with Soviet Union. Initially give the other party the benefit of the doubt, but if they prove themselves untrustworthy, for example, misleading, incomplete, or otherwise not true, accurate, and complete per the regulations, consider that trust lost. This applies uniformly to the permittees, political appointees, members of the public, maybe even your own staff. Another option would be always do right. This will gratify some people and astonish the rest. That's a quote from Mark Twain, and the adage is one that enabled me to sleep at night with a clear conscience. I sometimes wondered whether some of my counterparts who represented the permittees could make the same claim. Third, get a second or maybe even a third opinion. When in doubt, seek advice from someone with a broader or deeper perspective than you may have. A fool thinks they know it all. A wise person admits how little they actually know. You guys know how to contact me, and I'm always willing to provide my unvarnished perspective, whether you want it or not. And finally, one I've thought of for a long time: they're playing chess, not checkers. The permittees have hired the best people that money can buy, and you're not one of them because you're not for sale. Your job is not to simply react to the permit modification request of the moment, but to anticipate 3, 4, or more potential moves on the chessboard. Where are they ultimately going with this? What could be the worst possible future outcome of granting this request? Again, remember the lesson you should have learned from the volume of record decision. And now that's the last of the guiding principles. Now speaking again to you, remember who you are: civil servants representing the interests of New Mexicans. You are to be viewed as the unbiased technical, regulatory, and to a certain extent, legal experts of all WIPP permit-related issues, with a complete knowledge of the history and administrative record of WIPP as humanly possible. At one time, I strove to be the embodiment of that knowledge. My time passed 12 years ago, and that mantle has now been placed on your shoulders. I'm now in my 70s, and these may well be some of my final comments in the WIPP permit public process. Although I haven't been involved with WIPP as long as many of those in the various citizens groups, people back here, I had a ringside seat for 17 years as the WIPP regulator, and then a general admissions seat for almost 13 years as a private citizen. Although I've had my share of disappointment with changes in the WIPP permit over the past 5 years, I am encouraged to see this next generation of WIPP NMED staff stepping up from being enablers to being regulators. In recent negotiations, you took and maintained strong, defensible positions on what you wanted to see in the renewal permit, and you didn't back down. You don't always have to take the side of the permittees, nor of the WIPP critics. You just need to be true to your guiding principles in serving the people of New Mexico. I hope you won't let them down. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next in Santa Fe, we have Mary Risley.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm a third generation New Mexican born in Roswell. I still have relatives there who are very concerned about the earthquake activity in the Permian Basin. And I realized the strongest earthquake epicenter was actually in Texas, but very close to the border. And so I do have a question about whether NMED is monitoring this, whether it's possible to use AI, for example, to try to explore what increasing oil patch activity might do to the earthquake potential for damaging WIPP. I'll just finish my statements and then my question maybe could be answered. I went to my first WIPP demonstration in 1977 in Albuquerque. My daughter, who's now 47, was in her backpack, and I had a sign that said, "Don't waste New Mexico." And that's still my position. I want to thank this Environment Department, and especially Secretary Kenny, for strongly supporting the safety provisions and public involvement provisions that the Stop WIPP Forever Coalition presented. And I hope that you will maintain that high standard in the next 10 years. And we will all be watching you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. In response to that, that's one of the reasons we have the new condition about the monitoring the oil and gas and saltwater disposal wells around the WIPP site boundary, because it is something that we're becoming aware of. Thank you. Next in Santa Fe, we have Cindy Wheeler. Cindy is from 285 Alliance.
Thanks.
Want some help?
I think can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Cindy Wheeler with the 285 Alliance and also Stop Forever WIPP. And I have a question for Megan McLean in reference to the video that I sent to NMED last week. In it, 18 people who live on the route for waste to WIPP made comments opposing WIPP expansion. And they hoped that it would be shown to NMED and to Secretary Kenny and the governor at tonight's public comment hearing. So I wanted to verify for myself that you saw the video.
I did.
And who else will see it?
The video that you sent?
Yes,
Um,
at NMED.
I am happy to pass it to anyone you'd like me to at NMED.
Okay. And it's still correct that NMED does not want it shown tonight as part of the public comment.
No, we're not going to show it tonight because we're not going to show, this is our public meeting. And, we wouldn't do the same thing at one of your public meetings. We don't think it's necessarily appropriate to do that at this time, but we do appreciate the video and it was well done.
Okay, I just wanted to check and make sure. I'll give you the full names of those making comments in their order of appearance and let me know if there's anything else that you require so that the comments will be included in the official version of public comments. Is that going to happen with these comments?
If you submit a written comment to me, it will be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we would also like NMED to include its responses. So I will do that. I will write that. For those who haven't seen it, if you'd like to, please pick up a handout with the link. It shows the faces. And it's so important to see the faces of the people on the route and to know that every face is connected to a family. And so if these are the faces of those living at risk on the route for nuclear weapons waste in New Mexico. NMED has worked to make the operation of WIPP safer in some important ways, and we thank it for that. However, we are fully aware that the federal government intends to pursue WIPP expansion in the next permit, which will put these people at greater risk for a longer time. Most people on the route aren't as lucky as those in this video because they don't know about the federal plan. So we expect DOE and NMED to take seriously its responsibility to inform everyone on both the current route and the proposed routes that they're at risk.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cindy. Do we have more people online, Pam?
Oh, no, Mr. Solis still has his hand up if you would like him to make additional comments. I think that's what he's intending.
Okay, well, let's continue. We have two more people here in Santa Fe, and then we'll go back to you, Mr. Solis.
Okay.
Joni Aarons is next from Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety.
Good evening. I'm Joni Aarons. I'm with Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety. I have 4 points this evening. And to begin, I'd like to read the blessing that the Communities for Clean Water present at public meetings. The Communities for Clean Water focus on protecting community waters impacted by Los Alamos National Laboratory. Everyone here walks, lives, and breathes within these sacred lands of Tewa people. As we begin our activities, let us fully acknowledge where we are and give thanks for living mountains, valleys, and waters, which sustain our lives and form Tewa ancestral homelands and those of land-based peoples. Let us ground our activities in awareness of where we are, and may the mannerisms of Tewa peoples enter our lives and fill us with gratitude, love, care, and respect for all that is shared between us and all beings. Thank you. So I have a question for Rick Chavez with regard to this upcoming community forum on October 3rd that's advertised in the New Mexican this week. So I tried to register and the phone number doesn't work. The phone number yesterday when I called it, it said it was a medical facility. And I double checked the number 3 times. Today when I called, it said that the area code that I'm in does not apply to the 1-800 number. So Rick, do you have an answer for how the first community forum or the last community forum under the existing permit will be, how the public will get notice about it?
No, I don't, but I will find out. I'll
Okay,
get that
thank you,
answer for
Rick. So I just want to point out that after the permit goes into effect, this will be a violation of the permit, and would emphasize that it's important for the Environment Department make sure that all of the steps involved in the hazardous waste permit are followed to the letter going forward. And I'll write some comments later tonight for this. The second point is that I'm going to include in my written comments these recent GAO reports, Government Accountability Office reports about cleanup at Lanel. And the first one is called Nuclear Waste Cleanup. DOE needs to address weaknesses in program and contract management at Lanel. And this is especially important with regard to legacy waste and the prioritization of legacy waste to WIPP. So I'm going to put this in the administrative record. I'm also going to put into the administrative record this report from June 2002, contractor improving in safety in other areas, but faces challenges. And there's very many concerns in both of these reports with regard to landfill operations, with regard to radioactive and hazardous waste. And then I have one more. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. I want to emphasize the negotiations and the opportunity to sit around a table and come to solutions with regard to the permit. However, NMED has special role as regulator to ensure that the permit is strictly enforced. And so in recent legislative hearings, I have spoken as representative of concerned citizens for nuclear safety about the need for more funding for the Environment Department, number one. And number two, the need for full staffing of the Hazardous Waste Bureau as more hazardous waste facilities are being permitted, number one. It used to be 21 hazardous waste facilities in New Mexico, and now it's what, 22 or 23? So that number is increasing, and the amount of people, technical people within the Bureau needs to be increased. And so with that, however, I can support, CCNS can support those increases. Please let us know, especially as we go into preparing for the 2024 year. So thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Next, we have Janet Greenwald with Citizens Against Radioactive Dumping. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I always get that wrong, and I apologize.
I want to thank the governor and the New Mexico Environment Department for standing up to the nuclear industry, the all-powerful nuclear industry, and that we, during negotiations, gained a little ground, and that now DOE can't just put waste from bomb making into WIPP. They have to also deal with the legacy waste that's putting plutonium in Santa Fe and Albuquerque's drinking water, and hexavalent chromium into the aquifer that my hometown, Dixon, uses. Forbes magazine reports that there are as many as 400 lobbyists, nuclear lobbyists, in every congressional session. So it's not surprising, is it, that our congressional delegation keeps standing behind nuclear projects as job projects, job opportunities, and that's being sold to our young people. That nuclear projects are opportunities, job opportunities. But I live in a bedroom community for Los Alamos. That's what Dixon is, or one of the things it is. It's many things, but so I know about these nuclear projects as job opportunities. For years at the library, there was a support group for contaminated nuclear workers until the leader died. And now down the street from me, my son's friends, family had two young men who worked at Los Alamos. One of them recently died of cancer, and the other one was just told that he has 4 different cancers. And he called me up the other day, and what he said, if I had only known. You know, these young people are being taken into the nuclear industry without knowing, just like the uranium miners and the indigenous that live in the uranium mining villages were never told about the dangers. I hope that NMED is firm on standing behind the negotiated permit. And I hope as time goes on that all of us can work with the reality of nuclear projects in New Mexico. And that is that it devastates us. It kills our children. And with that knowledge, that will be stronger as far as standing up for ourselves through regulatory and legal means and other means. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Janet. Next, we have Lisa Silva, a private citizen.
As I'm just speaking as a citizen, we desire a future of fairness and safety in which the federal government keeps the promises that they made to New Mexicans, that they comply with federal and state laws and the WIPP permit, so that other locations are developed, which we were promised when we made the contract with the DOE originally. And so far to date, we've never ever heard of another one. There's no evidence that they've ever explored that option at all. New Mexicans should not bear the sole burden of the nation's nuclear weapons waste disposal. The DOE wants to bring nuclear generated weapons waste to WIPP and has applied to expand the amount and kinds of waste to be disposed of at WIPP with no end date. It was supposed to end next year. And as somebody else said, Ms. Wheeler, I think earlier, about in that video, I saw the video, several people on there live along that route saying they were promised that. They bought their property knowing and expecting that they were going to be safe. And along that route, we all know how accidents happen. WIPP has not addressed environmental justice issues at all. The NMED needs to consider the history, the needs, the concerns of the affected communities in their WIPP permits. NMED doesn't make DOE provide regulation required studies of short and long-term effects on the communities near the site and along the transportation routes. Whether such effects disparately affect communities of color and low-income communities is unknown because of the lack of studies. NMED doesn't understand the affected communities, nor do they understand what effects their permits will have on these communities. So NME and DOE cannot create permits for WIPP that are truly protective of human health and the environment and that are not discriminatory. The DOE wants to use WIPP for storage of waste from future nuclear weapons plutonium pit production, which are the nuclear triggers, high-level waste or spent nuclear fuel, which was not included in the original agreement, commercial waste, the same, and 34 plus metric tons of surplus plutonium. Excuse me. We were promised that the allowable waste was to be limited by materials contaminated by transuranic elements. The amount of waste was limited. The state is responsible for permitting WIPP's operation and closure, not DOE. WIPP's operations are supposed to end in 2024, and that was the agreement. It's a pilot plant. There will be other repositories that would share the burden of disposing the nation's nuclear weapon waste. Again, repeat it, but it's pretty important. We've never heard of nor seen any information on them looking into any other site. Excuse me. Expanding WIPP in these ways will greatly increase the number of waste shipments on our highways, essentially forever. This vastly increases the risk of a transportation accident and a radioactive release on our roads. In 2014, WIPP had a release that contaminated much of the underground mine. With no end date, this is more likely to happen again. The pure plutonium pits DOE wants to transport eventually to WIPP would be in powdered form for at least part of their journey. This is the most dangerous form of plutonium as it is easily inhaled and remains in the lungs. It would be impossible to clean up from our homes, schools, farms, and ranch lands. The biggest thing to me also, I think, is no end date. That's really forever. It should not be acceptable to our New Mexico Energy Department nor our governor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Solitz, would you like to speak again?
No, I thought I was putting my hand down. Sorry for the.
Oh, that's okay. It looks like there may be some other people. I'll let you tell me, Pam.
Yes, we have a member of the public, last name Wachimpino. I don't know how to introduce you, but if you'd like to make your public comment, please introduce yourself and begin.
That's Laura Wachimpino. Laura, are you able to unmute?
She should be able to unmute. Miss Wachimpino, this is your time to speak if you'd like to make a comment.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had a difficulty unmuting myself.
There you go.
Okay.
You're all set.
Okay, thank you. My name is Laura Wachimpino, and I reside on the Pueblo of Acoma, less than half a mile from Interstate 40. I ask the New Mexico Environment Department to please prioritize the disposal of legacy waste at WIPP in this particular hazardous waste permit, especially legacy waste from Los Alamos National Labs. I understand that volumes of legacy waste continue to be stored on site at Los Alamos National Lab. As far as the most dangerous plutonium waste from plutonium pit production, powdered plutonium, or other types of high-level nuclear waste, New Mexico Environment Department should factor in the transportation of this waste along major highways through our homelands, across our rivers and streams, through our cities and communities. The transportation and exposure risk along transport routes needs to be thoroughly assessed before plutonium in any form besides transuranic waste is considered for disposal at WIPP. I am also opposed to the expansion of WIPP and its volumetric limits. And finally, New Mexico Environment Department needs to propose a definite closure date for WIPP that is within the foreseeable future on behalf of all New Mexicans, so as to limit our endless exposures to this lethal waste as it makes its way through New Mexico from active generator sites to WIPP. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online, Pam?
It looks like Mr. Carl Peterson would like to make comment. Mr. Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask this of the permittee. After the atmospheric release in 2014, the facility was shut down for an extended period of time. During that time, was the facility modified in such a way that such a release would be impossible and that human intervention was not required to control such an event? Thank you very much. I'll take my answer online.
It's currently being modified. As we speak, we have a new ventilation system, which includes a safety significant confinement ventilation system, which will allow us to pull more air through the facility and more filtered air through the facility than before. So it's currently in that manner. Right now, we're running under filtration mode typically. And but we hope to have the new ventilation system online sometime in 2025. Thank you for your question.
Anyone else online, Pam? Thank you.
I don't see another new commenter. It looks like Ms. Reed would like to make an additional comment, if you want to consider a second comment.
Okay.
Ms. Reed?
Hi. Yes, well, I just wanted to explore a little bit what was said, where it said typically that they are running in filtration mode, but it is my understanding that when they are not in placing waste, to facilitate the ability to work more underground, that they are actually venting unfiltered air through the exhaust shaft. So I would like to ask when that started and how many times a week or how many hours a week do you actually run in non-filtration mode for the underground?
We only run in non-filtration mode for mining and maintenance purposes. For when we're operating in disposal mode, we use our exhaust, our filtration system. I don't have the data as far as how often that's used, but that's the way it's operating.
Could you give an estimate, just a very rough estimate of what percentage of the time you're mining and what percentage of the time you're in placing waste?
Do you have that, Michael? I don't.
I don't have that. I do know that the difference on our side is discussed. The 700C fan has been only operated in our morning meetings a handful of times. It is less than the filtered mode operation by a long shot, but I don't have that information specifically. I do know that the monitoring stations that we have in place do account for that and the amount of air going through that process, and is in our NESHAP reports for our annual NESHAP submittal in April. So we could probably pull it from that report.
I would love to get this information because this is actually the third time I've requested it. I have not been responded to at all the first two times. And if that could be provided, just to have an idea of, how much you're mining and using non-filtration and how much you're in placing waste. It doesn't have to be, down to the millimeter or anything, just generally so that we understand what is happening with the filtration and non-filtration. of the exhaust.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you from the permittees. Mr. Peterson, do you have another question or is your hand?
No, I do have another question. After hearing this discussion, the 2014 release was related to a fire and then the operation of the filtration system. Does the facility automatically suppress any fire that would occur in any of the galleries at this time?
We have some equipment in the underground that has automatic suppression systems installed.
Could,
In fact,
could you give me a reliability of that equipment? Is it at 10 to the minus ninth?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It looks like Ms. Sanchez has a question again. And also Roberto Roybal. Here, I'll let you lead, Pam. Who should we go with first?
I think well, you've called Ms. Sanchez. So Ms. Sanchez, would you make your second comment, please? And then we'll go to Mr. Roybal.
Hello, this is Corrine Sanchez, not Kathy Sanchez. Using my mother's phone, sorry. I would like to make a comment on behalf of Tewa Women United as the director. I think we have been trying to educate and give voice to the opposition around the WIPP project since, our inception. And our concern continues to be the threat the transportation poses to communities along the route, and having witnessed 599 established, so it could be a bypass or a buy through, and then now in these years having to see a school so close to the highway. Just continuing to think about the threats that it poses to our communities, especially those, we represent women that are pregnant and intergenerational. So I think these are just like how short our memory is, one, how long communities have been opposing WIPP, again, since its inception, and the continued, I think, kind of where it is the lack of trust in the ability to address these issues for our community, and the ongoing shifts that happen within tribal communities and communities along the route, that we don't want to continue to be sacrifice zones, that we really want to ensure that the resources that we have, or the gifts of our Mother Earth that we have, are continuing for future generations in a healthy way. And so I think these are still concerns that come up for us, and will continue to come up for us. We would hope, our hope is that this would stop, right? The most advanced nation in the world is still burying things. So how much are we relying on our abilities to look at alternatives and ways to reduce even further our reliance on things that continue to perpetuate or produce this waste that we still have no idea how to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Mr. Roybal, would you like to make your comment now?
Yes, please. My name is Roberto Roybal. I was born and raised here in Santa Fe, and I strongly urge you to deny the permit for the expansion. We've been lied to too many times about WIPP. I was there in the 80s protesting the WIPP. We were told that it was going to be temporary. Now I don't know how long it's going to last. We hear a lot of rumors, and I had a couple questions. We were told that that WIPP was going to be for legacy waste. I assumed it was legacy waste from New Mexico. Now I'm hearing that it's going to be legacy waste across the country. Also, I'm hearing these nasty rumors, and maybe you can explain this.
Excuse me, Mr. Roybal,
Yes.
could I interrupt you for one sec? We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Could you get a little closer to the mic possibly?
Yes.
I missed your first question. Can we start from there maybe?
Yes, the question is, I was led to believe that WIPP was going to hold legacy waste from New Mexico. Now I'm hearing that there may be legacy waste from throughout the country. Is that true?
I'm sorry, we can't hear you in the room. There is a phone option if that's easier, if the mic is not working well for you on your computer. Or you could put your
sorry.
question in the chat and Pam could read it also.
What's the phone number? I'm sorry. What is the phone?
Oh, Pam, do you have a phone number available for him? Could you put it in the chat maybe?
Yes, I can do that. I can just read it to you, Mr. Roybal.
Yes, yes.
It's area code 1-415-655-0001. And you will need an access code. Are you ready for the access code?
Hold on.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access
Yes.
code or meeting number followed by pound.
2634 380 5952.
Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number, press pound to continue. You can join the meeting after the host admits you. You will now be connected to the meeting.
I think you need to hang up your computer so that we won't get feedback if you have gained access on the
Can you hear me
phone.
now?
Mr. Roybal, mute something, either your computer or there are, Laura Watcham-Pino said she can repeat your question for you. Megan, we're hearing him fine, and I'm getting some comments from people who say they can hear him fine, so perhaps the audio in the room, but regardless, Mr. Roybal, can you speak your question now? Or shall I have it read by someone? Laura, would you like to repeat his question?
Oh, okay. I see your question from someone who passed it on to me. Is New Mexico accepting legacy waste from non-New Mexico sites? And the answer to that is yes. We do accept, WIPP does accept legacy waste from other sites around the country as well. I'm sorry that we're having some difficulty hearing you in the room. If you want, you can also in the chat put a question and someone else can read it for us. I think what we'll do right now is go to someone in Santa Fe to speak, and then we'll try to identify if there is another question. Mr. Roybal, please either put it in the chat.
Megan,
Go ahead.
he does have another question.
Okay.
I'm going to read it. It's in the chat. Will nuclear fuel rods from around the world come to WIPP?
No, WIPP is only for defense-generated waste from the atomic energy activities of the United States. Is there another question?
No, there's not one at this point.
Okay, I apologize for that technical difficulty. Thank you for your questions. Next, we have from Santa Fe. Is it Claudia Pavel? Thank you. A private citizen. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, a question, what year was WIPP supposed to stop accepting waste?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
In the beginning and when WIPP first came online, it was anticipated that it would stop in 2024. that it would have an
Right.
operating lifetime of 25 years. However, this was not put in as a permit condition. The only limit on the capacity of WIPP is found in the Land Withdrawal Act, which is authorized by Congress.
Okay, so it sounds like a bait and switch kind of thing. You know, like we thought that this was limited. Nobody wanted it in the first place. I don't think anybody who spoke out is speaking for WIPP at this point. So my question is, what is it going to take to stop it? Like, how many signatures would we need to get? Who do we need to lobby in Congress? How do we get this to stop? Really, what is it going to take? How do I do that?
I'm happy to take a pass at that. I think while there is not a time limit, there is a volume limit. And so that is one of the permit conditions is for the permittee to do a full inventory of the volume of transuranic legacy waste that would go in here. And subject matter experts tell me to stop when I get something wrong. So while it may seem like a bait and switch, I can understand how you would feel that way. Oh yeah, sorry. That volume limit doesn't change. And if that was defined by the Land Withdrawal Act, and if Congress were to try and change that volume, we would have the ability to rescind the permit immediately.
And approximately where are we now as far as volume goes?
Okay, that's the end of my expertise, passing it on.
I think right now we're about 42% full. Is that correct from the permittees?
Yes, that's correct.
How many tons is that?
Can you all speak to that?
Our Land Withdrawal Act is in terms of cubic feet or meters. I'd have to pull that number. I don't have that number right
Hey,
now.
Michael, can you speak clearly into the mic? We're having trouble hearing hearing you here.
Sorry, the measure of our waste at the WIPP facility and under the Land Withdrawal Act is in cubic meters or cubic feet. Unfortunately, I don't have the precise number in front of me right now, but it is available on our website.
Can somebody look that up? Great, thank you. Yes? And I understand that this would be forever in eons, how long it would be there. Is that correct?
Could you say that one more time?
I thought that what the waste was going to be moved somewhere more permanent, but I understand that now. Okay, so it's there forever for eons, basically. That's
Yeah, WIPP was designed for the permanent disposal of waste.
okay. All right. Let's see how much is there. And so how much, well, we'll find out. How many truckloads of waste are going to be coming down our highways across Route 10, 40, down 285? You can't hear me?
No, unfortunately, I don't know that particular information or statistic. How many?
That's important information. I mean, we've got nuclear waste traveling through our communities. Okay, on the way to be permanently stored. There is no such thing as, there's no guarantee. It's not possible to guarantee that there won't be an accident, a spill in our communities. These highways run through the heart of New Mexico. So I want to know how much traffic that is, how long it's going to take. And I want to know how to stop it. If there's any advice anybody can give me, I would like to stop this. We're not going to do it here. There's absolutely no way we're going to do this in this meeting or any of the meetings that you have to listen to people, because we've got 30 people here. I didn't know until my friend told me, but we can get signatures. We can lobby. I want to know how. I want to know, what do I need to do? I'm not kidding. We'll do it.
Well, I can answer or provide you let you know where the information is to answer your questions. We have a WIPP homepage where we post technical information and technical documents. If you go to our homepage and look under technical documents under National Environmental Policy Act, you will find our NEPA documentation, and in there, if you look through the documentation, it'll identify the risk analysis that was done for transportation, estimating the number of shipments that were coming to WIPP, and pretty much answer the questions that you've been asking today.
Okay.
So,
How about the one, how do we stop it? Can you answer that one?
No, ma'am.
No idea.
I would say that from an environmental perspective, WIPP performs a wonderful activity for the rest of New Mexico, including Los Alamos. We've been successful in helping support the cleanup of Rocky Flats and 21 other minor sites. While it is challenging to accept the fact that we have to put this across the roads, WIPP has an incredible traffic or milestone record of over 16 million miles without an incident. Our waste is shipped in true packs, which are tested and designed to withstand almost any type of, beyond accident scenarios that you could imagine. So while I feel your frustration on the traffic side, I wish it could just magically appear someplace or magically go away. It would be incredible if that were possible. Like I said, I really do empathize with that thought process, but I feel, like I said, having the ability to clean it up and to remove it from the places where it poses the largest risk and put it to some place where it poses a minimal or small risk or no risk according to our long-term performance models.
No such thing as no risk. That doesn't exist. No risk, not.
Oh, and I did want to say Ashley was able to pull up the numbers, and according to our permit, we've received about 74,552 cubic meters of transuranic waste under the Land Withdrawal Act.
Okay, so that much is going to be coming again, plus another 10% because we're 40% full. So that plus is what would be coming. Now, this meeting, if there's no way we can stop it, why are we meeting? What is the purpose of this? Just to have people say we don't want it? Is you're just checking a box as far as, Rick, we have to, have a public meeting? Because I don't get it.
So it's a great question. We're not checking a box. We actually legally don't have to have a public meeting. I'm sorry. We don't.
Okay, but you have one now.
But
Yeah.
if I can just say, the reason we do this is because we want to hear from you. We had advocates on both sides in these negotiations, but you as community members, you're important stakeholders in these discussions.
But there's nothing I can do, nothing, you're just informing me. Basically, what I'm getting is we can't actually do anything. I can show up and I can say I don't want it, and I recognize that 50 people, it doesn't weigh very heavy. However, I want to know if there's a way. Now, if you're telling me there's not a way, then you're just leaving it up to me to find a way, because there is a way, of course. Now, make it easy for me. I don't know where you'd put it. I don't have an answer. I mean, I don't know, but I don't like it.
Well, and you're providing public comment, right? Right now, and you can provide written public comment.
I know, but it's not really, it's a good conversation to have, but this is not what I'm interested in. I'm actually interested in stopping it, and I don't see a path, but like I say, we'll have to come up with something.
Thank you for your time. I would say that there are many groups in this room here tonight, and you could certainly network with some people here, and that's a good start. And I'll also say that that is absolutely not true, that what you all say does not do anything. The reason that we have such a strong permit that we just came out with is due to public comment. Public comment directly influenced many of the new permit conditions. And then stakeholders that are here in this room tonight worked for 4 long days during negotiations to improve those conditions and strengthen our permit. So the power of the people is evident right here in this room.
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that.
You're welcome. I
Doesn't
think,
mean I don't want to stop it, but
yeah. Well, thank you for your comment and thank you for taking your time here tonight. Janet, do you have a question? Then we have another person who would like to speak here in Santa Fe, and I see you also. Lisa.
I'm pretty sure that the person who just spoke was concerned about the transportation of surplus plutonium powder. And you said that the transportation would be in the True Pack, which is a very strong container. Would you like to revisit that answer?
I don't, WIPP is not involved in or have any control over the shipments outside of those that come to the WIPP facility. All of the shipments that come to the WIPP facility come in type 7 or type B containers. So I can't really speak to the surplus plutonium. I don't know the plans for that. It's like I said, it's not under our operations.
Okay, well, I can speak to that. No, the surplus plutonium that's coming from Pantex and will be oxidized at Los Alamos and then sent back along the same route past the San Ildefonso grade school, and many of us will not be shipped in a True Pack. So now you know.
Thank you, Janet. And is it Lisa? And Lisa's going to come up one more time and for a brief another comment, and then we're going to have one more from Santa Fe. Alan.
Is that clear or is it muffled?
Sounds very good.
Okay, thank you. I would like to know from all of the experts here, why have we never heard that the sites of these nuclear facilities, when they make plans, when you make a plan and you build something, you look at the whole life cycle. And they knew from day one there was going to be waste. They made no plans for it. Why has it never been mentioned that they should have to deal with their own waste? One of the experts up here said something about moving it away from the people that will be most affected. What about us New Mexicans? Why isn't it handled where it's been created? Why do we need to move it, whatever it is, 2,400 miles, wherever we are from the East Coast where the nuclear facilities are? Why has it never been mentioned that they deal with the waste where it was created? Why does it have to come? Why is the DOE's only answer always, oh, New Mexico?
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have, well, first I want to go back to the permittees. I think there's an answer to Joni's question about the phone numbers for the WIPP Community Forum.
Yes. Joni, thank you for pointing that out. We really appreciate it. I spoke with our communications group, and I'm really so sorry that mistake was made. It was a typo on the phone number. I have the correct phone number if you would like me to give it to you. It is 1-800-336-9477. And the flyers are going to be updated as soon as administratively possible to correct the phone number.
Will it be printed in the newspaper again?
Yes.
Thank you. And also, this is not the first time this has happened. That you
Janet.
Hey, Janet.
People not hearing and then you're
Well,
repeating the problem.
okay, sorry, but this isn't the first time it's happened. I tried to call other numbers that the permittee has put on flyers, and you get a medical service, so it's not the first time.
Thank you. Joni, you want to briefly say something and then we're going to go to Alan, who's been waiting here in the room.
Okay.
Thanks.
I thank you. Ashley. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for that correction. I think it's necessary to reprint these newspaper ads. The other thing that I would ask, there's an assumption here that people have smartphones to be able to read these QR codes. And if you don't have a smartphone, how do you get in touch? I mean, there's an email address and there was a phone number that doesn't work. Yeah, and a QR code. So I think we need to get back to basics, especially because as we described in our comments, generally and during negotiations, 25% of the people in New Mexico do not have access to the internet. And while that's being in the process of being corrected, it's not corrected yet. And especially in rural areas where there's no broadband, this is especially important. And this is a prevalent issue in the downwind communities of Los Alamos as well as along the transportation routes. That's my comment.
Thank you, Joni. Okay, we have Alan Kapulski.
Hi, I'm just a concerned citizen. I raised my kids here for a long time, and I'm currently an older student at Northern New Mexico College in Espanola Valley. And I'm not really saying anything more than what's already been said, but just on public record, if it's truly what we're doing here, I think it's really crucial to recognize and emphasize that there are communities, all of the pueblos, all of the legacy Hispanic communities along the way that intersect with these transportation paths that have acequias that are cherished in these communities, and those are already at risk for a lot of erasure, basically, of an important aspect of the agricultural and spiritual, frankly, aspect of New Mexico. And I think that, it's probably for the gentlemen who are in Carlsbad, who are doing the best that they can to explain to us that everything will just be fine as long as we don't reach this critical mass. It seems like this is a rhetorical question because I don't think anybody can actually answer it. I've heard it already, that this critical mass is endless. There is no critical mass. And you'll say, no, that's not true, citizen Alan Kapulski. We've already told you that it'll reach a point at which we won't do it anymore. But there's really no reason for us to trust that. So I agree with what you've said. And I would like to know, in addition to the prior citizen, what process we can go to pressure our legislative bodies here in the state. And I have a funny feeling that the answer to that is, well, we need royalties, we need money, we're an impoverished state. So then we can go to our, our federal representation, but what exactly would it take for us to go to our respective communities and bring the consciousness to the level of getting these legislators to at least stop just saying the same old thing, which is, oh, it'll end someday. Meanwhile, I did write some notes, but these numbers are astronomical especially, I'm not completely scientifically adept, but even a handful of this particulate is dangerous. So like with these metric tons that we're dealing with, what is the end? That's all I have to say.
Yes. Sure, I think we have time. Is there anyone else online, Pam?
Yes, Ms. Watson-Pino would like to make another comment.
Okay, let's do that first. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the workers who were exposed to hazardous material during the 2014 accidental release at WIPP. I never heard how many of them are still working at the facility, if any of them died, or what is the status of their health?
Let the permittees take that.
Yes, please.
We don't have any of that information with us tonight.
Well, can you tell me anything that
No.
you know?
No, ma'am.
Well, I'm surprised that you don't know. It seems unbelievable to me, but thank you anyway.
Okay, we have one. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Watson-Pino. Now we have Mari online.
Yes, hello, thank you. I would like to just make some comments on some observations that I've heard over this meeting. And I think it's very important, one, that we recognize some individuals trying to or wanting to know information about shutting down the activities. I think it's important to know that the route designated for these shipments on the 599 were to keep them out of the Santa Fe proper area. So the 599 was designated as and built for these shipments specifically. I think it's important that we remember that. And when you buy your property, you should probably speak with your realtor. Additionally, one of the other things that I think that we're all missing here is that the tribes are directly impacted by Los Alamos, and they deserve to have the waste removed, as they are equally as important as First Peoples, as everybody else in the room wanting to shut down these activities. I think, for us to stand up and say that we should shut this down and stop these activities puts the burden on the First Peoples of these tribes that are directly impacted by Los Alamos. Why do they not get to have the freedoms and opportunities of having a cleaned up site around their ancestral and tribal lands? I think it's unfair for us to expect that, only our vision is looked at and considered, and that the tribal people are not even considered in this process. And then lastly, I guess I just don't see this as a forever program. I think the Land Withdrawal Act is very clear in its language, in where it states that there's a volume that can be reached, and it's up to that volume. And I think, it doesn't give it a lifelong activity. When they reach that volume, that site, I'm assuming, would be closed. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you very much. That is all I have. Have a good evening.
Excuse me, Ms. Mari, could I have your last name for the record, please?
Yes, my last name is Kenway, 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 Mari Kenway.
Thank you, ma'am. And now, Megan, we have Paige Murphy Young who would like to make a comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Please proceed, Miss Murphy Young. Paige, are you able to unmute yourself?
Sorry about.
Okay.
In far as, sorry.
There you go. Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you for all your comments. They're very sobering. A little piggy thing about the permit. There's a provision in there that I just looked at it recently, and you know, it's like, I'm sorry, I've lost the. Okay, hold on. I've got my comments. It says, while NMED will respond to all comments received, they will not alter the proposed final permit. Now, the whole idea of public participation is to have an impact. Can anybody from NMED address this impotence? Is this, you can just fluff and stuff all the time, but it's got to be recognized and maybe make a difference while there's still time. The other thing that's kind of confusing is the end date, the 30th, or at the end of this meeting.
I'm not sure what you mean about the 30th.
I thought the end of the comment period was September 30th. I saw that somewhere, and then I saw today that it was at the end of this particular meeting.
It's always been the end of this meeting, and the reason that there is not the comments tonight, and since the settlement agreement was signed, will not influence the final permit, is that we had 4 months of public comment in the original comment period on the draft permit, which ended on April 19th. And then we had a hearing notice issued, which extended the comment period to the end of any public hearing that would have occurred. Then we held negotiations with stakeholders who were opposed to the draft permit in order to attempt to resolve those differences. We were able to resolve those differences. So on June 23rd, the settlement agreement was signed. And then I believe it was on the June 26th, the hearing notice was rescinded because of the settlement agreement. At that point, under the normal course of events per our regulations, the comment period would have ended. As of June 23rd, at the point where there was still any public comment that came in could influence the final permit, that was a full 6 months of public comment that we accepted. After the settlement agreement was signed, we decided at the end of negotiations to allow public comment until this date, the date of our public meeting. That was a courtesy so that people who had anticipated giving public comment in any public hearing that may have occurred could still come and provide public comment. That's why we provided this meeting, this public meeting, and also people could provide written comment. But the settlement agreement was agreed by all parties at that time. And at that point, we would no longer, any comment that came in would not influence that agreement because it was already done.
Well, it seems like NMED then is kind of waiving the people's rights to have actionable permit because this is not the same permit that was commented on before. So I'm just saying, I put this in my public comment and my written comments, but it's not the way things usually work. It's usually not this negotiation, and if you change it, you need to start all over again. Is one opinion. This is very grave stuff, and so I appreciate everything you're doing. But that little provision, and so anyhow, thank you so much for this opportunity to hear and see what's going on.
Thank you for your comment. NMED also will respond to all comments that are received, all written comments that are received. I just want to point that out as well. And this is following the regulations to the letter. We do negotiations every time we have a request for a hearing. That is part of our regulations. So we were following proper procedure there. And this is not a draft permit that was issued on August 15th. It was a proposed final permit. The regulations in 40 CFR 272 and the definitions state that a draft permit is not a proposed final permit. We issued that proposed final permit as a courtesy so that people could understand exactly the changes made to the draft permit during negotiations.
And Megan, would you mind reminding us what parties were part of those negotiations?
Sure. Sorry, just look it up. Yep. Just because I don't want to miss everyone. The permittees, which are the Department of Energy and Salado Isolation Mining Contractors, the New Mexico Environment Department, the Carlsbad Department of Development, Citizens for Alternatives to Radioactive Dumping, Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety, Conservation Voters of New Mexico, Nuclear Watch New Mexico, Southwest Alliance for a Safe Future, Southwest Research and Information Center, and Steve Zappi.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're gonna end with, we have. Sure, we wanted to check and see if Roberto Roybal, someone said he might have a comment still or a question. We just want to check on that. Did he contact you, Joni, or? No? Okay, I think we have 2 more comments here in the room, and then we are gonna wrap things up for the evening. Okay, and also one online. What do you all want to do? Online first and then do the room? Okay, let's do Laura Wachampino online, please.
Thank you. I earlier asked the question from the permittee about how, about the workers who were exposed during the 2014 accidental release at the WIPP facility. And I wanted to ask if that information was available on the WIPP website, on your website.
You know, I believe information about a person's health is privacy information. So we know there were no fatalities. We know that for sure. But I don't believe that information can be posted. If that's what you're asking.
I don't have any names and I don't know the people. I just said the workers that were on site during the accident. So it's very generic and.
Like I said earlier, I don't have any information on that at all.
Is it available on the website?
I don't know. You're welcome to look.
Well, that was my question.
Thank you, Ms. Wachampino. We have a new commenter in the room, Betty Kuhn.
Hi, I'm a citizen here, Santa Fe resident for a very long time. I'd like to know just how the increased seismic activity in the area near WIPP, near Carlsbad, has impacted this extension. Is there monitoring right at the site? Has that information impacted the formation of this new permit?
It has. Thank you for your question. We added a new permit condition in the renewal final permit to require a report annually of oil and gas and saltwater disposal wells that surround the WIPP site boundary.
Yes.
as part of our plan to address those issues.
Okay, because
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell the audience here, they can go to earthquaketrack.com and just put in recent earthquakes near Carlsbad, and the one today was 2.6. A 3.5 near Jal was also reported this week in another area in Mentone, a 2.6, and almost a year ago today, a 5.3 was felt in Carlsbad. It was in Texas, the epicenter. But the produced water that's being injected in the ground by oil and gas wasn't happening to the degree that it is now. When it wasn't happening when WIPP was developed. So I encourage everybody to keep track and, be concerned.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, Robin, do you want to go first or Cindy? Cindy? Go ahead, Cindy.
Boy, do we feel y'all's pain. So I'm hearing a lot of, I'm new to this. Pardon? Oh. I'm new to this. I don't know what to do. Is something already going on? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Who are the guys who are still trying to figure out if they're good or bad? And there's a group of people here that are from an organization called Stop Forever WIPP. We would be happy to have you contact us, and we can help explain some of the things that are confusing right now. We can identify the people that are trying hard to do the right thing, and we can identify the people that aren't, and we'd be more than happy to do that. I'm trying to think of the best, I think the best email to give you would be 285alliance@gmail.com. And then from there, we've got people in this room here who have been working on this for 40 years. So please don't feel like you're starting from ground zero, but there's a lot to learn and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Cindy. Robin
Thanks,
Seidel?
Cindy. Yeah, and you can also go to stopforeverwhip@gmail.com for if you are interested. I wanted to speak to one of the provisions in the new permit briefly, which was that NMED could close WIPP if health and safety was at risk. I believe that's one of the new permits, provisions that we fought really hard for in the negotiations. And I want to tie it to a question that Laura Wachampino asked and a concern that she brought up in relation to the 2014 fire and explosion and release. That was both underground and above ground. And I want to remind folks that the contractor in 2014 was a Bechtel subsidiary, and that the contractor currently is a Bechtel subsidiary. And one of the reasons that that explosion and contamination occurred was that the contractors were racing to get a bonus. And so things were not packed appropriately. They exploded underground. Some workers weren't informed of the explosion. And all of that occurred in this rush to get their bonuses, for the contractors to get their bonuses. I say that in relation to the health and safety provision that we need you to enforce very strongly. And I don't know if there's a way to change any kind of bonus to the contractors. I think because a Bechtel subsidiary allowed that occurrence to happen, that event to happen, and we currently have a Bechtel subsidiary. it will behoove very strongly the New Mexico Environment Department to regulate, watchdog very carefully. You do have that provision. We fought hard for that provision, and we need you to really strongly enforce not only that provision, but many of the other provisions regarding health and safety of our homeland. So, thank you.
Adam. Okay, can I move up here?
Okay, while she's moving up, I just want to make another quick comment. I know everyone's sick of hearing from me. Thank you all for your advocacy over 40 years. It is why we are here today with all of these provisions that strengthen NMED's oversight of this site. So I want to thank the newcomers and the folks that have been with this WIPP for longer. Your voices are important to us, and we're really glad to have you as part of this partnership. And I also want to thank Megan one more time. She has a tough job, and she's killing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary. And thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming here and telling us about all your concerns. It means a lot to us. I just want to let everyone know that this meeting, as you know, was recorded, and the recording is going to be posted on WIPP News. I anticipate doing that sometime early next week. And also the presentation that I gave will be posted on WIPP News. I want to thank our Office of Public Facilitation, Madai Corral and Pam Jones. Thank you to Red Rocket of their media service out of Carlsbad, who came up to provide the wonderful technical services here tonight, also in Carlsbad. And thank you to our interpreters, Lisa O'Grady of Lagra Online and her staff. And thank you to Caitlin Martinez in the back who greeted you at the door. She's part of our Hazardous Waste Bureau Lannel group. And thanks to our Director, Rick Sheen, and Deputy Secretary Linneman for being here tonight. I encourage you all to attend the upcoming WIPP Community Forum on October 3rd if you would like to ask more questions. And thank you, and please be safe getting home tonight. Thank you.